friends, welcome back. It's been a while since we've had time in the kitchen together. I hope you have had a wonderful holiday season. We certainly have here in the mountains. We have a great guest in the kitchen today. This is my sister, Kate. She is from New York City, not here in the mountains like we are, and she is super excited to host a New Year's Eve cocktail party. So we started thinking, what kind of menu could we put together for a cocktail party in an urban place with a tiny kitchen?
No. A tiny apartment. My kitchen is the size of maybe the oven over here. My apartment is the size of the kitchen.
Correct. We've got a tiny kitchen, we've got a tiny budget, and we've got a tiny amount of time. So we're going to put together a menu that celebrates old New York food that we love, hot dogs, pizza, black and white cookies, all sorts of things, to put together a cocktail party on a budget that will be fantastic for Katie and all of her way fun Manhattan friends.
Performing artists who have no money.
Artists with no money. So here is our menu for today. We are going to do an homage to the tomato mozzarella basil salad by making a dip out of that. Who doesn't love New York City pizza? So we're going to do a pizza, but a Kit Kat version with some figs and some prosciutto and some goat's cheese. We're going to do the New York City hot dog. We're going to do sausages on puff pastry. That'll be real easy to just eat one at a time. One more salty snack. We're going to do spiced nuts mixed with kettle corn, 2 New York City delicacies. And then 2 sweet snacks, an apple cheesecake parfait and black and white pretzel rods. And then Katie, the master mixologist here, is going to mix up a delicious cocktail to keep everyone in true holiday spirit the whole time. Sound good? So let's get started. We are going to start off with the tomato dip. Why don't you bring everything over? Okay. The tomato mozzarella basil dip is super easy. All it has in it is cream cheese, sun-dried tomatoes, which we dried this summer with our local tomatoes here and have made into a spread and have just jarred, and some mozzarella cheese. Go ahead, Kate. You can mix all that together there. Now, while Katie mixes that together, I'm going to get started on our pizza as well. In this cast iron pan, we have caramelized 2 onions. Onions start off huge, and when you caramelize them, they get tiny. So if you love caramelized onions, feel free to use 3 or 4. It takes about an hour to really caramelize them. So make sure you give yourself plenty of time. So we've caramelized those in this pan. I'm going to pull this out, but first I'm going to show you the pizza shell. We have already pre-baked it. Now, we've also been using our oven as a storage facility. Katie, do you use your oven as a storage facility for anything in your life?
I have very limited space, so I try to make my apartment as versatile as possible. I keep sweaters, I keep shoes, everything I can in my oven. Good. Because I am not quite the chef that my sister is.
So if, like Katie, you use your oven to store boots or dog food or anything else, before you preheat it, make sure you pull everything out. Just a small heads up. We got this pizza shell from our local pizzeria. It's a great way to get pizza dough without you having to make it. So keep that in mind if you're trying to do things quickly and cheaply and don't want to worry about yeast and rising dough. Grab a ball of dough from your pizzeria, bring it home, roll it out, and just pre-bake it. That's what we've done here. Now, this pizza does not have... looks and smells amazing.
It smells awesome.
This pizza does not have a normal pizza sauce on it. It's not a red pizza. It's not an Alfredo pizza. So we're going to start off just brushing it with a little bit of olive oil to give it that delicious kind of sheen. Does that look good to you?
It's awesome.
Oh, good. So on this pizza, we're going to put our caramelized onions. We're going to put some figs that we had dried this summer. Figs are really kind of pricey if you get them at the store, but they are delicious and you don't need a whole lot and they go a really, really long way. So that's just olive oil on here. Remember that this is going to be warm. Cast iron is awesome to work with, but the whole pot gets really, really hot, so keep that in mind. Katie's doing great things here. She doesn't really even need me. She's taken the dip and mixed it all together and now just put it into a casserole. That's going to go in the oven with one more topping, which is some basil pesto. Now, I'm just going to sprinkle these on here with my fingers. Don't worry about that. Anything that's hot is going to go in the oven. Any germs will just cook off, so no worries. Basil pesto is really great to make in the summer when there's tons of basil available. Grab some basil, grab some olive oil, any nuts that you have. Oh, great. If you have walnuts, if you have pecans, if you have pine nuts, sprinkle those in there, Parmesan cheese, and just whiz it around in your food processor or your blender, and it will make a fantastic pesto that you can freeze. Here's a quick tip if you want to if you're cooking for one or for small groups, if you freeze it in an old school ice cube tray, and then they're all in just individual portions of the pesto. Once it's totally frozen, you can pop them out and put it in a Ziploc or any sort of zip-top bag, and then you've got them to just take out a few at a time if you don't want to defrost the entire thing. So Katie's put that pesto on there, and she's going to pop that into the oven, which remember, we've cleared everything out, so when we preheat it, it won't have...
So you won't ruin your Jimmy shoes.
That's right, won't have set your boots on fire. And that dip is done. How quick was that? But we're talking 2 or 3 minutes is all it takes to whip that together. Looks gorgeous, really holiday with the colors. The taste is amazing. It's perfect. We're going to serve that with bagel chips. You know, New York, gotta love a bagel. You can get those at your local market as well. They're delicious, crispy, salty. So that's set. Now, another thing we're going to put on this pizza is pancetta. Katie loves pancetta. And we're going to use the same exact pan that we cook the onions in. It'll give it great flavor to the pancetta. Do you want to snack on some?
Yeah.
Delicious.
Oh,
great flavor to the pancetta, and one less dish to wash. When we're working in
I hate doing dishes. Yeah, I'm real bad at it.
When we're working in tiny kitchens, the thought of doing dishes is not very pleasant. Katie, the other thing that's going to go on this pizza are these figs. Would you mind chopping some of those for me?
Yeah, of course I can.
Maybe just in little slivers.
Okay.
So this pancetta is going to do what we call rendering. That's when the fat cooks out and the meat itself gets really crispy. The great thing about this pizza are all the textures. We've got soft crust, we've got these really delicious stringy onions. Figs, I don't know if you can see this, but when you dry a fig, it gets this really, almost kind of a creaminess on the inside. It's chewy like dried fruit. Just delicious. Those will go on there, and then the cheese that'll cream it all together. So it's a delicious pizza. We're going to just cut it into bite-sized squares at the end so people can just walk around. Aren't they good?
They're so good. They're really sweet.
Yeah, they just really go great with the onions. So we are going to get this pancetta rendering. Now the other dish that requires some cooking time is our homage to the hot dog. Now we all love New York City hot dogs, but they don't really make for the most elegant cocktail party.
Not so classy.
No, so we thought, how could we jazz up a hot dog? And we thought, how about sausages on puff pastry? So, come back into the oven where we've been storing some treats. Puff pastry is delicious. And
is this enough?
So, yeah, maybe even a little smaller.
Okay.
So that everyone gets a little bit on each bite. Puff pastry is great to work with. One thing to keep in mind, you want to keep it cold. Once it gets too warm, then it can no longer, it gets really stretchy and soft and you can't work with it very well. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this into bite-sized squares. It's okay, I'll use this one. Okay. The other thing about puff pastry, once it's cooked, it's almost impossible to cut. Because you know, it's got all those layers of butter and dough, and it rises and gets so flaky. But because it's so flaky, you can't really cut it. So we're going to cut it beforehand into just these bite-sized squares. About this size, because remember, they are going to cook and grow as they bake. So maybe a square about this size. We're going to separate these out and get these baked. The last thing we're going to do before we take a break is look at our sausage. This is just a smoked sausage we have here. We're going to cut these into small pieces, bite-sized pieces that'll fit on here. And when we come back, we'll get these all assembled and move on with our sweet treats.